Hey, Marg, I seem to have no audio here. The computer's audio isn't working.
Paul, I can hear you. I think no one's speaking.
Yeah, Paul, I can definitely hear you. Can you hear us? Okay, being 7 o'clock, I'd like to open the November 1st meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission. We will take roll call. Jim.
Yeah.
Ben.
Here.
Paul.
Yes, I'm here.
Peter.
Here.
Teresa. Oh, Teresa, you're muted.
Sorry, here.
Okay. All right, first up is the approval of the minutes from November 1st. I made a couple of small adjustments that I sent to Judy and she implemented those. Don't know if anybody had a chance to read them or has any questions or comments. And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes for November 1st?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor? Teresa,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes,
Ken,
Yes.
and Jim.
Yeah.
And I also vote yes. All right. First up is DEP 313620, 100 Hemlock Road. It's Northeast Regional Vocational School. Applicant, are you ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
Sure, Ken.
All right, so Dave Conway presenting for Northeast Metro Tech from Niche Engineering. And the biggest move we have since we last met with you is we did a site walk with Jim and Rebecca the Thursday after last meeting and kind of walk through the kind of the field conditions on a kind of a micro level and came up with a new alignment for the roadway. And if you don't mind, I'd like to show you, but I think just to refresh people, I'll flash what we presented last time, just so folks, and then it'll be easy to kind of see the differences. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is what we presented last time, and moving in from the farm road, we're in the 25-foot here. We're fairly close to wetland 2 here. We were filling 3 and doing some replication here with walls. And then there were some impacts to the non-jurisdictional 4 with a culvert over the bank. And in working from what we've heard in the last meetings and also the site walk, we revised the layout. And if I miss anything from the folks that were there on the site walk, Dan, Jim, Rebecca, just speak up, please. But this is a revised layout, and what we've done is, starting at Farm Road, is we've pushed the road farther planned south, so that we're now almost completely out of the 25 foot. There's a little work being done in the 25 foot of wetland one. And the green dots are some trees that we field located on that site that we want to kind of make sure that we could, as best we can, keep them and not impact them. One's obviously close, but this tree, for example, used to be in what would have been like the middle of the sidewalk or on the edge of the curb or something like that. So we were able to kind of pull the roadway out of the 25 foot in this area, and save some significant trees that add a lot to the site. And then as we move farther down the road, we pushed, and this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it was something that we picked up on the site walk, and it was a good observation, in that in this area here, just north of the road, there isn't any significant vegetation. And by pushing the road a little bit farther away from 2, we give 2 a little bit more space to breathe, and maybe also present, some more opportunity to maybe have, some sort of plantings along here as a better buffer. Again, one of the other things we do, and again, if we get a kind of a positive reaction to this layout, is there's more work to be done on this. We want to actually locate kind of significant trees within the impact zone. There's areas up here where we have invasives, where we'd like to maybe propose some sort of mitigation, removing the invasives, doing other plantings, and then even start to layer on, figuring out what we're losing for trees, what we're losing for canopy, which we've tried to minimize, and then where can we start to make up that, future canopy plantings. So we pulled the road in farther from 1, pushed it a little bit farther away from 2, and then this is a little bit different, but I'm going to start at what I would call the back, because to me, just as an engineer, it makes a little bit more sense with what we've done. But kind of hearing about how people see the system working, and the overflows and wildlife, is we've kind of put some curves into this and added another wildlife crossing. So we pulled the road down farther away from 3, so we're not impacting 3 anymore. We've pulled the road farther away. We're still have some work in the 25, but we're not impacting. There's no wetlands takings for 3 at all. In doing that, we've impacted another couple hundred square feet of the non-jurisdictional wetland 4, and what we're looking for is areas where we could easily do some replication for that. And then we would be planning some sort of overflow, because what we hear is that when there's significant rainfall events, that there might be some flow from 4 out, an overflow pipe to kind of maintain flows to 3. We had the culvert before. This works for both water flow and also wildlife crossing. And then we're holding back the grade along here, again, to kind of give the wildlife, wildlife doesn't know that the property line's here or not, but the wildlife and the water, if there is any, to run along the road. And then another crossing here, which would allow both water and wildlife to kind of migrate back to 1. So we can kind of give them an uninterrupted corridor from 3, say I'm a drop of water on a heavy rainstorm, I can go from 4 to 3
Non-rechargeable. Do they go in the trash?
to 1. And
Yeah.
That's it quickly. I don't know if you want to kind of see, like last time I was able to put one over the other, if people want to see the kind of the before and the after stacked on each other, or kind of discuss this, or people's thoughts on it. But it was a result of a lot of good work and good ideas from a bunch of different folks about kind of how to make this less impactful. and again, we're not done with it either. We need to start to understand like how we, other mitigation measures that we can do to kind of make this more. And just a side note, one of the things I'm starting to like is now this roadway has some gentle geometry, so it's really will hopefully start to look like a something that's a driveway through the woods and not just a straight shot that's kind of just plowing through. So that was a long run-on sentence, but I don't know if you want to ask questions or give me your thoughts. Or if you want, I can stack them. Like I said, I can stack one over the other if you kind of want to see a comparison.
Yeah, could you do that, David, please?
Yep. All right, so can't quite get them both in. Okay, the scales are approximately the same, and the alignments are essentially the same. So what we saw 2 weeks ago was on top, again, closer to 1, closer to 2. 1 culvert wildlife crossing. These walls are taller. Impacts to 3 and impacts to 4. And now what you're seeing on the bottom is slightly greater impacts to 4, although it's hard to tell that they actually are. It's less than 100 square feet of additional impact. An overflow pipe, the wall, we've pulled back from 3. These walls are a lot shorter. The culvert's essentially the same. We've held back the grading along this bottom side to kind of create a pathway. Another wildlife crossing here. And then kind of a double curve as we move towards Farm Street, where we pulled away from 2. And then this was kind of a bigger move, is we pulled farther away from 1. Really got it. Again, I'm going to zoom in real close. So this line is your 25 foot. So we're kind of nicking it there.
Are you also adding the wetland replication area down by 4?
What was that?
Are you also adding the wetland replication by 4?
Yeah, and that would be one of the more detailed things that we would need to figure out, because if you go out there, so again, it's not jurisdictional, so it's not required, but
Right.
there seemed to be an easy way to add some replication area, and these areas are approximate, because what I think as a group we wouldn't want to do is, and I'm going to zoom in on this area real quick, is if you go out there, this area has trees in it, right? And I just to hit some sort of number, I don't think it would be, to say, oh, we're going to triple the size of 4. We'd have to cut down trees and start regrading to do that. And to me, that kind of gets to the point of where you start chasing your tail. So what we'd want to do is kind of map out where we can kind of do some replication that's not really going to alter the landscape, and it's really going to take, right? We're not going to start like cutting down healthy trees to get 3 times the number when we don't need to do that. But again, we'll kind of take our cues on that from the biologist and from you folks.
Yeah.
So it lined them up. There we go.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Matt, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Matt Byrne, BSC Group, peer review consultant for the commission. David, this looks good. It incrementally has improved a lot, and I like the addition of the second wildlife crossing. I hope that you might be able to do a little bit of opening of the approaches to the stream crossing, if that's feasible from a engineering standpoint.
Yeah, man, I don't think that was a big deal. Like, so that's the fine tuning, like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you can see we have the grading even across it.
yeah,
We we're working to make this one, just so you know, like even today, like, okay, what's a good height that makes it a viable wetland crossing? But that's the type of stuff that we want to incorporate into, like, a final version of that.
yeah. So if the commission is agreeable, then you'd go into some finer detail on actually figuring out how it's designed.
Yeah, and we can pull those back, so it's not like a feeding tube. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
that's what you're getting at, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Kind of a wider opening chute. Yeah. Now, I'm just curious with non-jurisdictional wetland 4 impacts, the addition of that drainage. Is that necessary just because of the volume displacement that would be required for fill, or kind of what was the thinking on that?
So it's not. It's from the engineering standpoint, Matt, from what I understand, it wouldn't be. First off, it wouldn't be at like a everyday elevation where this thing would be draining out constantly to from 4 to 3, right? So we have to very carefully pick that elevation so that it would replicate where that area currently overflows. And so it's it's going to be some variation. I forget the number, but we have to go out there and kind of look. We have these contours on it, but it undulates around the edges. So I think we kind of got to look at like where we think it overflows, shoot an elevation, right? And that's where that pipe would be an elevation. It wouldn't be up against like the bottom of the wetland or anything like that. So we kind of have to carefully like figure out how that's actually working when it does fill up, and then we can set the elevation at that.
And that doesn't change the landscape for the jurisdictional status of that.
Well, it really would just be, that's a combination of law and
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be an everyday. It would be only under, from what can kind of eyeball from looking out there, an exceptional rainfall event that there would be water ever move through that.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe we've had some abutters or public members observe water under certain conditions making that route.
I've actually seen it. We were out there. We actually have video of it.
Okay.
Dave.
Yep.
The 100-foot buffer actually extends out to include a lot of these non-jurisdictional areas. Wouldn't they be offered buffer zone protection because they are in the buffer zone?
Yeah. So the work with them is all part of your jurisdiction.
Right. So those areas that you're calling non-jurisdictional, do you know what kind of vegetation were in those areas?
Dan would be the best one to answer that, or even. Actually, you know what? I'm not even sure Dan's on the call tonight, but
yeah,
I
can chime in.
Yeah.
So number 4, we looked at, there were trees like red maple and there were black gum trees mostly. In the 3A, which is the small one, I believe that just had some shrubs like high bush blueberry. Is that? Those are the 2 areas I think that were just. And then there's number 2 as well. Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, what I'm really looking for is are they wetland type of plant life in there?
Absolutely, yeah. That's why they were called out as vegetated wetlands. Yeah.
And the only reason why they're non-jurisdictional is because they're too small, correct?
It's because they don't border on a stream,
right,
or a pond, so they're isolated. They're not bordering vegetated. That's why they're non-jurisdictional. If they were large enough to, they could be ILSF.
Right, but
And
they don't meet that criteria either.
Exactly.
Okay, and these wildlife corridors are supposed to mitigate for runoff, is that correct?
Uh,
As well as wildlife, you're gonna have water flowing through there.
So what we're trying to do is kind of keep the same contours. Now, again, I don't, from what we've kind of done as part of our analysis, we, if this is good for wildlife, it will also serve water, but
Mhm.
the stormwater management works fine without it, would be what I would say. But what we're trying to do is react to what we've heard from
Right,
people's experiences on the land, not like, take issue with it. If we can accommodate it, we're trying to do it.
yeah. So my only real concern is that I believe that this water goes from surface water to groundwater and goes in and out of that. And I wonder what the effect is of putting the road in this area. Is there any type of drainage pipe that should be in there, or I've seen the water flowing underground. Matter of fact, I tried to get some dye tablets from the town engineer, but I didn't get them in time. Because I wanted to see where the water was flowing, but it definitely goes underground. That whole system connects from wetland 3 to wetland 1. And I guess I'm just concerned that that we're gonna maintain that path in some fashion.
Yeah, we're trying to do is mimic what we're doing out there now. Now, what we haven't added on to this is the storm drainage system for the roadway itself,
Mhm.
which includes like the water quality treatment, the catch basins, the detention system, and some sort of like, discharges from the system out to the wetlands to mitigate rates. We have to work out that we in the previous versions, we had that all worked out. So we have to recreate that, and then I think one of the main focuses is, and I forget if it's Matt or Dan, one of you guys, we have to kind of look at how we're doing with the outlets. I think there's a desire to have like not concentrated flows as best we can from any of these systems, kind of mimic what's going on out there today.
So I think that the fact that these non-jurisdictional wetlands have wetlands plants growing in is a good indicator that there's water there most of the time. And maybe that might relate to where the water goes when it goes underground. And I don't know what effect that's gonna be, or if it's any effect at all. But I'm just trying to point that out, that I don't know how that works.
Yeah, like again, when we take the next steps with this, we'll can touch about that a little bit at a high level as far as like how we do our analysis and things like that. And the next is if we get to the part where we're talking about stormwater tonight. But that's all part of our analysis. That's all part of like what
Yeah.
your
Well,
peer review is going to look.
that is stormwater, what we're
Yep.
talking about.
Yep.
And we're talking about how the flows are gonna go from, we have your drawing as far as the drainage areas. We just want to make sure we agree with those areas.
So any other thoughts on and if you want, I can if it's easier for folks.
I have one more question. Did you guys do any test borings along the proposed roadway? Not the big test pits, but any kind of borings?
We did, and I know you asked me that while we were out walking. And I just don't have that handy. Maybe Paige can pull that up
Okay.
while we're talking. But we did. You know what? Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. So this is the same version, of what was just on your screen, except what we're showing here is the blue line with the dots is the stakes and the center line of the road, which was first proposed, so back in October that we talked about. And we have a test pit here.
Mhm.
We have a test pit here
Yeah,
and a test pit here.
and the fourth one you didn't get, right? They only did,
In this area, and then looks like
there's one they couldn't
there's-
get to.
I don't think we did this one. I think that was one that they wanted to get and they didn't get it.
Right, but there was too many trees there.
Yeah, I
There's
think you're right.
also One right up by the top of Farm Street. At the very top.
Oh, there it is. And Paige, just correct me if I'm wrong, but do you remember? I think they're all fairly shallow to bedrock.
I don't know off the top of my head. Well, in general, the site was shallow to bedrock, so.
Shallow being what, 2 feet, 3 feet?
Probably in these areas. We'll get you the exact.
I know when
numbers.
I was there, they dug one hole, the hole that I saw, they were down 5 feet.
Yeah.
So I'm still questioning that because we were gonna talk about ledge blasting and maybe avoiding blasting, or is there other ways to get your utilities in there that would protect it from frost and not create any damage by blasting?
Yeah. And so unfortunately, no, right? We're going to have to blast, the water lines require 5 feet of cover. The storm system, just even removing the ledge from this knob, we're going to have to blast to do that. And blasting is actually the least intrusive kind of method of having to do that rock removal. And we did talk to one of our blasting experts, and I know there was concern about, like, are we going to crack the rock beyond like the blast zone and impact the wetlands? And what we've been told by people who do it for a living is that any sort of fracturing of the rock, what they do is they pre-drill the blast holes, and they'll do those on like a 4 to 5 foot spacing, and they pack the holes and then they make a blast. There's no cracking of this rock more than half the distance of the spacing from the hole. So 2 feet from the last hole would be the extent of as far as any sort of rock cracking that you would expect. And then these wetlands are, covered in hydraulic soils, which are very plastic. They're not brittle. We're not going to, even if we were to, mine under them and explode something, which when, they're not going to drain out, because it's basically like the bottoms are rubber pool liners. They're not going to they're not brittle. They're going to crack and just drain out. And that's not like, I'm doing a lot of ums, and it's not the clearest answer, but we have asked our experts and they don't see any issue with this. And when we do it, we can talk to someone. What we'll be doing when we do blast is pre-blast surveys, and also they set up seismographs to measure peak particle velocities for the blasting. If there's some key points, we can have some additional seismographs. We can ask the blaster to do that. The blasting standards in Massachusetts are set so that you don't crack horsehair plaster.
Wow. They may have said them that way, but I don't think it always works that way.
Yeah, but it's that's where they get their numbers from. It's from saying what will cause damage to the most brittle household material that we have, and it's horsehair plaster. So it's we're going to do it carefully. We're going to do it understanding.
I was just reacting to the report that the geologist wrote, and it seems this is very hard, brittle ledge, and they were saying that in a case like this, less is better than more. So I think they're talking about,
more smaller. You
yeah,
think
smaller than larger.
Yeah, and Yeah, that, I mean, that would, I can imagine that, and that's also probably what folks around here would prefer.
Yeah. Okay,
Would blasting mats be used also?
Yes.
Do you have a sense of how much of the road would need blasting? I know lots of it was fill.
I
Like
think,
like
David-
ballpark, is it just a few sections or is it, a huge length of it?
so
David, I'm
just so you know,
sorry,
we,
this is Joe from PMA. Will you also speak to the more recent shift as well? Because I think the original and it kind of lends itself to the trade-off of almost everything we talk about in these meetings, but the original design intent tended to kind of weave outside of that blasted zone. If you don't mind just touching on that as part of the response.
yeah, so just so you know, because we moved this plan south, we moved this deeper into this knob of hill, this hill. So
Yeah.
this is, if we were to go back 2 versions ago, we weren't doing this. So that is some of the trade-off.
And that's above grade blasting, right? That's blasting on the hillside. It's not
Yeah, it's a ledge,
blasting
so that would be like a ledge face.
right.
but
It's
so
not
you-
blasting below the road.
Below the road, we'll have our utilities, with
Right.
just even the water line being 5 feet down. But you know what? That's an exercise we can do. We can kind of like, once we start to layer on these utilities, because obviously we're not looking to do more blasting than we have to.
Right.
And if I was to look at this section, say through here, we can, the water line can be under the road in a fill section. That's not an issue.
Right.
So that's something we probably could do, like a little color coding of our best guesstimate. If there's a,
Yeah. And sorry, I interrupted you about the ledge that Joe wanted you to talk about. Sorry.
just that, just the trade-off is moving away from the wetlands and wetland impacts. We now have more ledge impacts.
Dave, one
Yeah,
other thing,
that's perfect.
one other thing is, I was scaling off the a section where you've got it being sloped on both sides of the road, which you don't have now. Well, yes, you do. But the width ends up to be like 75, 80 feet. Is that about right? From
What,
toe slope to toe slope on each side of the road?
like here?
No, down the other end towards 3. Yeah, in this area here where you're going grading, just off of. Can't read it.
I'm just putting this in because I can adjust it and you can tell me kind of where you're talking. So what kind of
Well,
dimension
right-
were you looking
like
at?
right where you'd get these 2 wing walls. Would we be better off to do a wall on both sides and have less disruption? What do you got with for
Here?
50 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 50 feet.
About 50 feet. Okay, my drawing was showing more.
Let me make sure I get the right scale. Nope, I don't. So you're, the danger of electronics. We actually had a lecture of this in my office the other day. Sorry. That's like 70 feet, like something like that.
Yeah,
Now these, again, so these are 2 to 1. So one thing, so either Matt or Dan, I think it was Matt. I mean, I'm hearing a desire that maybe these get opened up a little bit more. So maybe this comes at a little bit more of an angle or something to kind of address that. But then again, these contours are were created 2 to 1. So there's also areas where we might want to, if there's a desire to kind of like draw that impact in a little bit, we can do it without walls by just doing riprap Now, there's areas I definitely wouldn't want to do that because I don't think it's kind of what we'll be looking for. But there's if it again, that's kind of the next layer. If there's some, we can with this layout, it's now easy to walk out there and say, and I don't remember them being there, but say if there were significant trees like we picked up over at 1, what can we do to kind of work around those?
Yeah.
I can follow up on Jim's question about the depth to bedrock. I just checked the geotech report and it ranges from 4.2 to 5.6 feet across those 4 test pits along this portion of the roadway.
So it wouldn't be much blasting then anyways, right? So it doesn't sound, it sounds like it's about a foot of conflict between.
Yeah, I get, yeah. So like at that level, they're not like to get, say, the water line in, they're not blasting. They'd probably chip or drill and chip or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to see where the stormwater detention system's going and the elevation that might need to be blasted out. But yeah, you're right. If we're sniffing around that, the general, again, they try to avoid blasting where they can. It's not.
Yeah, and that was from Paige, that was from existing grade, right? So
Yes.
You're actually up about a foot in that area anyways, aren't you, with the finished road? So you actually might have it, or pretty close to it.
Yeah, and also in general, we push the road up. You know what I mean? So like the test pits were kind of down closer to the wetland. In general, we're now up higher.
Mhm.
Again, through here, I think we can safely say we're in ledge, but down here, just even existing grade, we push the road up. We push the road up higher and farther away. So yeah, actually, so it's something we can look at and kind of maybe do like a little color coding one for our best guess of it.
Yeah, you may just hoe ram there and not need to blast at all.
Yeah.
I don't think,
Sometimes what they like to do is, and it's actually the best because hoe ramming, even they'll pre-drill and then hoe ram.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice method of, especially for like trenches and things like that.
now you have to give all your blasting data to the fire chief, right?
Yeah, they have to pull the permit with them, and then
But they have to give a drill pattern and all that stuff too. Is that right? That goes to the fire department?
I've never gone through one of those submissions, but it's I think and again, we can kind of come up with, we can have someone submit like the blast, but they mark out the areas where they're going to put their monitoring. There's a lot about storage. There's a lot about like procedures. Again, just so folks know who are listening in, like the people who do this is all they do. They don't do it on the side. They don't do it. These firms are multi-generational. So it's not wily coyote type stuff. And then they'll do I know there's a test blast. And on a site like this, maybe there's initial ones, right? Where they do like a test blast to kind of understand how that rock reacts to blasting, right? And then from there, they develop a more detailed plan about, the whole pattern, moving forward, like more of the whole patterns and the charges. So they get the result they want. They're looking to get the result they want with the least amount of charge is basically how I kind of always understood it. So if this is, again, something that seems more palatable, we can start to develop this further and start to layer on like, mitigation measures. And again, just kind of do a finer detailed design on this to kind of make sure we're not, there's assets there that we want to maintain that aren't showing up on this, and, just kind of, get the result we want for this.
I just have a question. With respect to keeping the mature trees, the one that's closest to the road or to the sidewalk, how realistic is it that that will be kept?
So that's one we talked about for a good amount of time a week ago Thursday, right? And that would be the one I would say that we need to bring the builder out there and have them take a look at it. And we couldn't maybe make promises on it, but we could work around it and then see how it is progressing throughout the life of the project. And that was, I think, something we were, here we've moved it, I forget. But anyway, we moved the road farther away. So there will be no guarantee, but what we're now doing is not physically impacting it. So it's got a chance.
And that outermost strip that you see is actually the landscaped shoulder.
Yeah. So the sidewalk ends right
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
there. And, sorry. And then I was even like suggesting for something actually for this specific tree, but like other thoughts I've seen done is like, okay, well, what after, the school's not going to be built in a day. Like, what if we get towards the end and this tree is obviously failing,
Right.
right? So, not that we would go out. What would its replacement be? Right. Like what can we do to kind of make that right? But I mean, that's I think that's something for you guys to kind of like, sorry.
I'll have to take another look at it.
And I think there were trees behind this one that were just not shown. We kind of use this as like the fence. There was like a grouping. Again, anyone who was there that day, I think there was a grouping behind this tree that was fairly nice. We kind of used it as a fence to build a new alignment off of.
Well, it's gonna rain tomorrow, so I'm gonna go out there and see if I can see some water flowing.
So I don't know if you guys, it's 7:40, and do you want us to kind of like walk through some of the the stormwater management and approach? Again, we're doing this at a kind of a level, so you can see how we undertake the analysis, so you can have some comfort with it, but not like a peer review level where we're talking.
Yeah, right. Do you want to let anyone comment on it yet? Bob, any of the butters or anyone? Just
I mean,
give it before
we
go too
could,
far?
first of all, does the commission have any other specific questions related, to this driveway? And the changes proposed? If not, we can open up to the public to.
Mr. Chairman, I
Sorry,
just
Matt, go
throw a
ahead.
couple things on the table, since no one else has comments. And these were a couple of comments from the peer review letter that went out on the 4th. I just want to sort of get
Can I
these
just ask,
into
was the peer review letter shared with the applicant?
Mhm.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Great.
Well, then I would suggest that the applicant respond to each of the concerns in that letter. Unless some of the concerns are more important than others, Matt. I don't mean to, sorry.
No, I think that's appropriate. I think that coming out of tonight, if the commission thinks that the proposal we've been talking about tonight is the right direction to go, then that would be an appropriate time to address the concerns that were raised in the letter. So as the applicant team kind of pushes this proposal forward and starts really digging into the nitty gritty, that's a good time to address the concerns, some of the concerns that were raised. And that was what I was going to suggest, is just be thinking about the buffer zone impacts and kind of how we mitigate and quantify that.
Mhm.
thinking about wildlife in the road that get inside of a vertical curb, box, so to speak. And lighting impacts to the wetland that might be associated with roadway lighting and those sorts of things. So I just want to put those on our radar. But I think that, as this concept gets pushed forward, if the commission, chooses to suggest that, just want to remind the applicant to think about
Use
those.
it as a guide as we move forward, right? Like that's.
Yeah.
So will there be a written response to the letter that Matt had prepared? Or should we kind of just go through the questions?
No, I think I think we should give again. Well, I'll take your folks' lead. I would say, and people disagree if you don't like what I'm saying. I would say we would give a written response, but hopefully by the time we develop this further, most of the written responses are incorporated into the revised plan. See such and such,
Okay.
right? As opposed to like point counterpoint, like. I don't want, so.
You wouldn't give a written response until you did more work on if we like this plan.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Matt's got to look at the final plan and say, yeah, they like, even if we write the response that says we incorporate it into the revised plan, he's still got to look at it and say, yeah, they did it correctly. I mean, it's, I can't grade you shouldn't be grading my own homework.
Yeah, I think that as you move this forward and you bring those concerns into your design and you think through them and address them, then in narrative you hit those points and like you say, David, I sort of concur or quibble, and we move forward that way.
And just so folks know what we'd like to do, what I'd like to do with the stormwater peer review, and I think it would be helpful with the biologists as well, is that as we progress this, if we come to like something that we kind of want their feedback on, do you think what we're doing here addresses this concern, or we think this concern is being we're addressing that, like if we can, we'll have like that dialogue. I think it's easier for me as the designer, and also when I do peer reviews, if we can have that as a back and forth instead of just a grand unveiling and then like agree, was it agree or disagree?
Yeah,
That would have been helpful before you submitted the first set of plans with us, but that's neither here nor there. But
Well, I was thinking you would love that first set. It was like Moses coming down from the mountain, right?
We would give an incomplete grade.
I don't think so.
So Matt, I guess, was there anything you did want them to address at this point that hasn't been mentioned?
No, I think that, they have that letter, and, going forward from tonight, if the commission says, yes, let's take this concept forward, that's the right opportunity and time for them to sort of think through those things with LEC, and the design constraints that they have for engineering and come up with solutions to the concerns that were raised in the letter. So I think that's a fine way to go forward.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we are a little bit at a crossroads. We could kind of start a stormwater management discussion, or we could hold off on that for a bit until our own peer reviewer has a chance to review what is already there. If we choose to do that, I'm asking the commission's opinion. We could also right now just open it up to the public for their questions instead of getting into stormwater. What's the commission's feeling?
I was under the impression that we were trying to satisfy one of the comments, and one of the comments was that we go for such a long time that people forget about what they were thinking of at the start. So this was just a method to break it up so that we got a few questions out and then we move on.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
so we can do that then. We can open it up to the public for
Mr. Chairman,
questions. Um,
if I could briefly,
somebody's trying to say something?
Joe, actually.
Oh,
that was
sorry,
me
Joe.
if I could. Oh, no problem. I would just like to request just clarification in with the timing change. Does that mean that if we're going to the public comments that we won't have a chance to talk about the stormwater? Because I know we've been talking about it for a couple of meetings now, and I would really hope that in consideration of switching the kind of schedule around, that once we hit 8 o'clock, we don't say, well, it's been an hour now and we can't talk about it again, because then that's a month and a half of talking about it.
So let's see what we have for questions, how quickly we can get through those. And, we could begin a stormwater discussion after that.
You just took a couple minutes talking about it.
True.
Got me on that.
If I could ask one question for the applicant team, with the changes that you need to carry forward, does that materially affect your stormwater design?
No, and actually what we're actually going to put up there was like from the first one you guys really didn't like, just as to kind of like show you like the concept, and the concept's not really changing. And as far as the stormwater strategy for this area, if you can imagine, we're just the approach is still similar, but we have to work out more details, like again focusing on like the engineering, not having the concentrated flows, things like that. But the approach of capture, clean, and detain is still the same.
Okay. All right, so before I open it up for questions from the public, I would ask that we keep to the questions related to what we've discussed regarding the roadway, and remembering that our jurisdiction is the wetland resource areas, riverfront areas and buffer zones. So that being said, if you have a question, raise your hand. When I call on you, please identify yourself and your address. I am not seeing any.
Yeah,
hands raised
one.
at the moment.
There's one, there are two now.
Oh, are there?
I think I saw Jennifer first.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Jennifer Fanning, 4 Pheasantwood Drive, Wakefield. Yeah, I was just wondering if the project had considered at any point something like a bridge over the wetlands in this area?
The culvert's actually acting like a bridge themselves. The difference between a culvert and a bridge is actually just the span, which is, I think, one's less than 25 feet, one's greater. So it's semantics, but do you mean like something more elaborate, like Zakami or something like that?
Something elevated?
Again, just for cost, no. And then the span's fairly narrow. The least impactful kind of thing seemed to be would be to just kind of minimize the impact and minimize the span.
I guess, Jennifer, are you kind of asking if the culverts or the wildlife crossings could be wider than 10 feet, or are you asking if the whole thing could be like elevated?
Yeah, I'm asking if it could be elevated in parts as needed to, since there's evidence that these wetlands are connected, to kind of minimize some of the impacts.
So there is one area, the first crossing is elevated, that is a culvert, so that the water would pass underneath, and also creating a wildlife corridor through there. There's that drainage pipe they have pointed out connecting 3A over to the isolated wetland. So there are those connections. Are there specific areas that you're, I guess, concerned about or asking about other than those?
So yeah, I guess the fact that the culverts are elevated is something that I don't think sort of came across, but I'm thinking about kind of the connections between the areas that connect the wetlands.
Yeah, so there are 3 connection points, well, 2 hydraulic connection points shown and another wildlife crossing. We have talked about what the heights of those would be, and the newest one we don't know yet. But there was talk about that first culvert being of sufficient height to let pretty much anything through there that would need to get through. I don't remember what that height was. David, did you mention what that would be last time?
I think the biologist meant, if I get this wrong, I think 3 feet is the minimum target height. And I think we're in excess of that for the 1x3. And then the other one, because it slopes across, I think the high side would be like 3 and the low side could be like 5 by the time you get down or something like that. So and then again, it's also, that's kind of I think stuff that Matt covers in his letter, that we kind of make sure you design these to meet the needs of the wildlife. So where he talked about pulling back, again, so this isn't like a feeding tube for something, like pulling back these wing walls and making this more of a wide open. That's the stuff we'll start to detail. We'll start to draw in more detail.
Yeah, I mean, the preference would be that larger mammals would certainly be able to get through there without crossing the road. Jennifer, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. I'm not sure who is next, but we'll go alphabetically. Christine?
Yes, thank you. I wondered where we can find a copy of the peer review report that you were discussing. Is that going to be made available to the public?
We could, I don't see why not. We could send that to you or post it somewhere on our website, potentially.
That would be great.
Christine, what's your address, please?
Oh, no, can you just post it so
No,
everybody
I mean,
can see
just
it?
for the record.
Oh, excuse me, Woodland Road, Wakefield.
All right. I don't see any reason why we couldn't put it on our website. Or that would probably be the easiest option. Did that answer your questions or question?
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Linda, please, go ahead.
Linda Ireland, Nowell Road in Melrose. Just to follow up on Jennifer's point, I mean, the actual interaction between all those wetlands, as you know, is pretty complex. And the way that this culvert, the Series 3 culvert is sending the water sort of south east, that stream actually curves back across into that roadway and heads towards Series 1, and I don't see how that's going to happen. Whereas if the roadway was elevated there, you would be minimizing the impacts on all of the hydrology of that region and the amphibian migration, because this is spotted salamander territory, as well as other amphibians. The other point I wanted to make is that the area that's going to be blasted, that of course is priority habitat for Hence's red-bellied tiger beetle. It's mapped priority habitat. That is a rock outcrop and adds to the overall damage that this project is inflicting.
Linda, going back to your first point, so Wetland Series 3, going under the culvert to the planned south side, are you saying it loops back?
It loops back, and I do believe there's video evidence of that. it loops back and goes, it loops back into the woods and heads towards Series 1. And I don't see how that's going to happen with this particular construction unless that roadway was elevated and you weren't building this huge
Could it,
structure.
could it be someplace where that other culvert, wildlife crossing is proposed?
Well, that depends on the contours of the land, but I
It is downhill.
highly doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the contours.
Yeah.
I mean, this was done. If you can kind of see my little arrows I'm putting in. With that intent. And that was a reaction from the comments we've heard at the previous hearings.
Okay.
Again, we'll
Well, there's
find,
rain tomorrow, so you can probably find out where those streams are running as it gets wetter. And
Yeah,
get a
Jim
better
said
idea.
that he would try to be out there tomorrow.
but this was all done in reaction to kind of maintain this corridor.
Okay.
I mean, it was a fairly,
And based on the contour mapping, it does look like you've hit those points. I think that the turn back toward wetland 1 occurs actually over the property line in the right of way by the looks of it. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just being a fuss budget. I mean, water, I
Yeah,
get it. Water
yeah.
doesn't respect the property line, but like
Yeah.
that.
I think you also
yeah,
have to think,
yeah.
I think you also have to think about maintaining the water to number 2.
Yeah, and that visually, we kind of have a graphic for you that we can kind of show how we, we consider that one of our design points.
Linda, was there anything else?
No, thank you. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Bob Brooks, please.
Sorry about that. Bob Brooks, 7 June Circle. I just, my question is, when you're talking about this roadway and it does go from the elevation downwards towards Farm Street, correct?
Mhm.
And I look at,
There's a
yeah,
low point actually in a little bit here.
okay, so we're looking at about the foot marker, is that the elevation for feet or is it just marking for distance? What would be the elevation difference where the mature trees were area compared to back over where the culvert was?
So from here,
Yeah, go back towards the school up the road. Keep going, right about to there. What's the height difference in this? Well, you could go back a little bit to your left, Dave.
yeah. So actually, not to give you like exacts, but I think like
David, I'm sorry, just a reminder, let's let the chairman direct the questions if he wants to try to.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Sorry about that. It's just human nature. We want to just reply
Yeah.
and it's conversational, but it's sorry, it should run through you.
Yeah, well,
What are those elevations?
yeah, right.
so.
Yeah,
Three's at about 140, elevation 140, 141. And then down here, we're at 129.
okay, so there's about a 20-foot difference, correct, in elevation?
10, 11.
Okay, my concern is that with that elevation and the amount of water that's going to be or drainage that's going to be into wetlands number 1, I think it's going to be more excessive than it is now. The question I had, because I've kind of asked this question before, and everybody's seen it where the small culvert is. How do you regulate how much water gets put into this wetlands from this proposed roadway? And also, does the town engineer have a plan for this yet, or is this still in the planning stage?
So we will talk about the water budgets and what's happening in each of the wetlands. We don't want to see more water put in or less water put in that would alter, the wetlands in any way. So that is something we definitely have to review. Does the town engineer have a copy of these plans? Can someone answer that?
Town, and
I know
Uh,
they've had copies
where's the
of plans. I
town
don't know if they have this plan.
Yeah, the reason why I asked about that, because I've been down to the town office before, quite a bit in the past, and asked, and everybody keeps saying, well, we don't have a plan in front of us, so we really can't comment on it, which I understand. But the Northeast group has mentioned that their responsibility ends where that culvert is that drains into the June Circle area. So if their responsibility ends there, then the town's responsibility, I assume, gets picked up
yeah,
where the culvert is.
that's right, Bob.
So should the town engineer be aware of this potential area? And how do you measure whether there's going to be too much water or too less water? Is there a gauge for that?
Well, that's a good one for Dave to think about, because we have to match the flow that's coming out of it now. So
How do you-
whatever is there, that's why I'm saying you're gonna have to talk to him. I don't know how they do that.
Okay,
So that would kind of be, I think some of these questions would be answered for like our kind of our stormwater overview, right? Like
Right.
what the standards are, how you quantify the existing conditions, how you quantify the proposed conditions, how you regulate the proposed conditions to mimic the existing conditions, where you
Were
look at it.
referring to a different Dave, by the way? Or were you referring to this Dave?
who?
Jim?
I'm sorry, I was asking Jim.
Oh, sorry.
Were you referring to Dave from the town or Dave on the line here?
I was talking, no, Dave from the, no, there's no Dave in the town. Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the question?
No, I was just confirming that you were asking this Dave the question and not saying that you had to talk to somebody
Oh.
else.
I know, all I'm saying is that it's right, your obligation ends at your property line. And then the town picks it up.
So to answer the question, Jim was talking to Dave Conway.
Yeah, I was talking to Dave up there.
Sorry.
Okay, so. All right, I don't see any additional hands raised. So we could start talking about stormwater. You know, give it a little bit of time and see what you have to show us.
So what I'd suggest is do you have a target time you'd like us to present? Because we could talk to stormwater for days, or we could do it very quickly.
Yeah, I know there'll be additional discussion no matter what we talk about today. Let's maybe target a half hour and see
Okay.
what happens.
All right, now Paige is going to present this piece of it. So I would say, Paige, do you want to take over control?
Sure. I can share my screen. That's one thing.
Thanks.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So just for everyone's record, my name is Paige Simmons and I'm a project engineer with Niche Engineering working on this project. So I'm just going to keep it high level as discussed and run through our main objectives in our stormwater approach. So in the existing and the proposed condition, there are 10 design points. And each design point is modeled for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm to either meet or reduce the rates per the Mass DEP stormwater standards. And so I can pull up, this is the existing conditions map that you can see. Each color is a different design point, and each design point is modeled based off of the existing land cover, if it's pervious, impervious, and then how the water flows and the time of concentration to get to each design point. So this is all modeled in the existing condition. And then these same 10 design points are then modeled in the proposed condition. And you can see there's various subcatchments, but the design points from the existing to the proposed are maintained to be the exact same points so that we're comparing apples to apples. And then in the proposed condition, we go through the same process of mapping out the impervious area, the pervious area, the times of concentrations, and all of that is input into a stormwater model, which calculates the rates for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm, which is the Massachusetts requirement. And then we compare those rates for each storm event to ensure that we're not drastically increasing flows at any location. And so that's just the big picture of the hydrology and how our interpretation. And as Dave mentioned, as that roadway or the driveway is finalized, those design points along the driveway will be reevaluated to make sure that we are matching as close as we can, matching the rates at each one of those design points so that the wetland series are not affected. But that will all come, as that roadway or driveway is tweaked and, we come with a final layout. And then to touch on the hydraulics, our proposed design right now is a closed drainage system. And what a closed drainage system means is it consists of catch basins to pipes to drain manholes to water quality structures to detention systems. And the water is captured in those systems and then conveyed to the various different outfalls. And an important thing to note is that this project, we are treating all stormwater for TSS and water quality. And it's the 1/2-inch water quality volume, which is the requirement of the Massachusetts stormwater standards. And in the existing condition, there is no water quality being provided. So we are enhancing the quality of the water that would be discharging to these wetlands. So I'm going to run through the proposed drainage design and just highlight some of these features that I've just skimmed over. And as you'll see, the concept is the same throughout the site, but there's various iterations of it. And also, as mentioned, this layout is, the original layout that was originally submitted to Concom. So this will change. Sorry, the Conservation Commission. So as you can see, there's a series of catch basins that pick up the water at the low points. So the low point here, this is captured in the pipe into the drain manhole, into a water quality structure, and then into a subsurface detention system. Then the detention system discharges into the wetland. And as discussed, we're looking to separate some of these so that it's not, isolated into one overflow point. But any water on site that has, that would be experienced vehicular traffic, any impervious area will be treated through a water quality structure so that no oils and sediments are being discharged into the wetlands. Again, very similar approach on this side, catch basins along the roadway, a detention system, and then discharge into the wetland series. So here you'll see very similar, this system. So we have 5 subsurface detention systems spread out throughout the site. And the intent is to capture the water in various locations and hold it back for peak rate attenuation so that we're not flooding any downstream areas, that it'll be let out at a more slower rate to mimic the natural condition. And so unfortunately, as discussed, the bedrock is very high on site. So we unfortunately cannot infiltrate. So these systems are lined to prevent infiltration and but their main goal is to slow down the rates. So this system here is intended to capture any runoff generated from this parking lot. And this system discharges through this head wall to wetland series 3 and 3A. Here's the additional piece of the building. And there's a series of roof leaders that collect this roof area. And these are conveyed around the building on either side down to the lower campus. And anywhere, as mentioned, that there is vehicular areas that need to be treated for water quality, they will pass through, a water quality structure, which you see are these Q for quality. That indicates all the various water quality structures throughout the site. Heading down to the lower campus, and this is infiltration system number 1, detention system number 1, which captures this lower portion of the football field and the soccer field, similar system. And then lastly, detention system number 2, which captures this upper portion of stormwater from this portion of the site. Same series of catch basins, drain manholes, water quality structures, and then discharge into wetlands series 9. Or is this 9? Yeah, 9. So that's a very high level overview. I can get more into the weeds, or if there's questions now, we can stop and address any questions.
Yeah, Paige, a couple of questions. So storm drains, are you going to be able to do deep sump basins, or
Yes,
any thought to that?
all catch basins will be deep sump hooded catch basins.
Okay. And the water quality structures, are you looking at some swirl chambers, or what is it you're proposing?
We typically propose like our Contech or
Storm scepter.
Storm
Okay,
Scepter.
all right, excellent.
And then another thing I also forgot to mention is within each of these detention systems, the hatched row that you see is actually a isolator row, which is an additional water quality row. What it's set slightly lower than the rest of the system so that it can collect any sediment that makes its way there.
Okay. And there'll be an O&M plan for all these structures?
Yes, and that should all be included. The O&M should be included in the stormwater report. I know it's very long, but
Okay.
Paige, all your contours seem to stop at the property line or some equal distance off the property line. What did you use for your drainage areas? Isn't there any places that the water drains onto your property from the adjacent property?
we did a pretty comprehensive analysis of the site, and yeah, we did generally use the property line as our boundary, but I think we did take into account if there's any major offsite areas. However, the site is quite large and the majority of our impact is in the center of the site. So a lot of the surrounding areas were actually within the property line, even though they're exterior of our limit of work. But we can take a closer look at that.
Do you have survey work that's done outside your property line? Or you stopped everything at the property line?
We can use like GIS for that. So it's not as detailed, but if there's a large area, it becomes
Yeah.
evident just using like, those areas. But where,
It seems to me that you've got to be getting something, especially off the power line property. I know it all runs down that path.
and I think we counted for some of that.
No, but how do you just account? I mean, it's just, you should,
Yeah,
when you say account, what does that mean?
we can look at the numbers that back up. So like if you were to add up all these colored areas, in our report, the number's actually probably higher. So just graphically, I don't think we showed, I believe we accounted for them in the report. Graphically, I don't think we're showing them here, would be my answer.
Okay.
But
maybe
we'll
you
check.
can point them out in your report.
Dom's gonna ask that as well. Because
Yeah.
that's usually like question 1 from like any peer reviewer.
All right. So maybe you can go over how you picked your time of concentration on some of these. Because doesn't it normally go from the highest point on the drainage area to the lowest?
So it's actually a little bit more subtle than that. It's the longest hydraulic time.
Right.
So sometimes you have to test it. So sometimes like the longest path might not be the longest time because it's like, say it's steeper. So we'll end up doing like a couple of them.
And another factor is the surface material, because it could be a longer distance, but it could be pavement or a
Right.
pipe where the water flows very fast, or it could be a shorter distance that's grass and it would be flowing at a slower rate.
So how do you account for that then, Paige? What do you do?
So as Dave mentioned, we do various iterations to see which time takes the longest, but we have basically a calculation where you plug in the slope, the length, the material, and then it can calculate the time of each segment, and then you would piece everything together. So like, for example, if you started somewhere where it was a grassy slope and then it sloped down to a pavement section, and then the pavement section sloped into a catch basin and into a pipe, you could piece
Okay.
all those
Keep
three.
adding it up.
Yep, and you add it up, and you would see which scenario gave you the greatest time. And that's what
Okay.
those red lines indicate.
Right, okay, I understood that. I guess I just find it hard to believe that it's so uniform around your property. I think there's gotta be some off property that goes towards your property.
Yeah, I think the person we had do the graphic was different. The person that did the report, I think, accounted for the offsite area. Then we just had someone color in the graphic. So I will confirm that. But that's usually question one from your peer reviewers, and that's a good question. But the difference in the time concentration, if you look at the gray one from here, again, just to kind of nerd out, but you can see the red line indicating the time of concentration, and that path is a little bit shorter than if you were to take it from the farthest point away, but it's not as steep. So that's why that time of concentration is the one you use.
And actually, all these little letters indicate a change in either material or slope. So
Okay.
so it could have changed. Maybe it's less steep or more steep, or maybe it's changing from rock to landscape or something like that. So those are all basically break points where we updated the calculation.
So basically, Paige, you keep moving that line around until you get the longest length,
Longest time. Yes.
time, right?
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
And so all the assumptions, again, the peer reviewer will check all our assumptions too. Like, so that's, if we were to do this on the other side, they stop at offsite areas, checking our areas, checking our delineations, the times of concentrations, surface covers. So there's certain things like, that affect the calculations more than others, and have a greatest, sensitivity. And that's where they start to the focus in on things. And again, we generally take a fairly conservative approach on, we're not aggressive with our side. First off, the system needs to be maintainable. We need to be able to hand over something that's going to meet the goals now for stormwater and, in the future. So it's going to be, it's something that the school can maintain. It's not some Rube Goldbergian type of system. And that it's maintained in good working order for the life of the school.
So are all your discharge points going to the wetland by the field, or how did you do that? Did you mimic the locations as well?
Yeah, we try to mimic locations, and I think one of the things we'll do, even on the ones not around here, is kind of look to some of them maybe have spread the flows out, especially over by the baseball field. I thought that might be one that we would maybe try to spread the flows out. But then again, not to take uniform approaches, but the existing school discharges the lower campus to the two wetland fingers Paige is zooming into now. So for those, we're going to maintain those flows, but we connect back from the head walls. There's existing pipes feeding those head walls. So the lowest impact kind of approach to that is to
What are you talking now?
She'll show you. So this is
You're going all over the place. I can't.
Yeah. So this is actually on the Breakheart side, and that's this is in the property, but it's on the access road to Breakheart.
So this is the Breakheart gate right here, between the site and
Okay, yeah,
the break cart path that starts right here.
And remember, we walked down there, we saw the two
Right.
streams and the head walls.
right.
And this is where we had to sneak through the fence to get to the back.
Yep,
Yeah.
over here. Yep.
So is your, where's the roof drainage going now? Through these same
To these
locations?
areas.
Yep.
Right, Paige?
So, yes, so these pipes, lines you see here, this gray D
Yeah, yeah,
and this gray D here and here, these are all existing drainage connections that discharge through this head wall. So these pipes are picking up a combination of the existing parking lot and all the existing infrastructure that's up in this portion of the
mhm,
campus now. So these two locations, we're going to maintain these head walls and these connections, but we're, as discussed, we're confirming that the rates are either matched or reduced.
Yep.
And this,
What'd you do on the other end of that field? Where the other wetland is?
Not baseball field, 9.
page north.
I'm trying to think of where I am right now. Okay.
So up here, is this up by the existing baseball field?
No,
This
I
way.
was actually thinking down where you were.
The lower field,
Around
Jim?
the corner,
Oh.
where the big
Yeah,
marsh
the
is.
Oh,
river,
So
the riverside.
We actually don't have any impacts in this area, so this is just maintaining the same condition. There's no pipes over here.
Okay, so. Oh, all right, okay. There's no pipes at all on that lower section.
No,
No.
it just slopes off to the,
And what did they do with the field, the football field that's up high? Is it-
That is, oh, let me see if I can find that. That is this one.
Yep.
Yeah,
So we also aren't touching that, so it's
okay.
just maintaining the existing condition.
Oh, so then at the baseball field, you do have a discharge point there.
Yes.
yeah, and that's the one, like, I think it was an internal conversation. I think we looked to maybe spread that out across the slope more.
Mm-hmm.
That one is actually fed from parking lot drainage right now. It's what I believe is how that finger was created.
From parking lot drain.
Yeah, there's an existing head wall. You can see it right here on the survey
Yeah,
that picks up the drainage that heads, yep, so you can see a catch basin in the parking lot here. And then it creates a web in various directions.
Mhm.
So that is the existing discharge point. So that is part of the analysis that we compare. What is
Yeah.
discharging to this point in the existing versus what is discharging it to it in the proposed.
okay.
Through the chair, if I may, Paige,
man.
could you go back to the previous view where we're looking at brake cart, those two discharges that go into brake cart?
Yes, let me just get there without making everyone dizzy. This one.
Yeah, on the left there, that open water body, fairly certain that that's a certified vernal pool. And I think you should have Dan and Andrea take a look at the implications of the discharge into that. Yeah, as an outstanding resource water, that may need some pre-treatment. I don't actually know how that kind of runs with an existing discharge that you're changing. You just might have some outstanding resource water implications to think
Treat it
through.
to a higher level, yeah.
Possibly. I'm not really certain the permitting implications of that, but I think you all should check to see whether or not that's certified. I think it is. And then figure out what needs to happen to have that remain a legal discharge.
And we can talk to Andrea about that
Yeah.
and Dan.
Yeah, I might even have an opportunity to, yeah, we can talk about it because we can definitely look into that. My mind's already running through some scenarios.
Are there any other questions?
What was proposed there right now for water quality? Is it just using what's there, or was any enhancement proposed?
Oh, yeah.
So what's proposed is deep sump putted catch basins to water quality structures.
Okay.
And the lower campus, you know, is where we see like a bigger, you know, reduction in impervious area, right? Page, like because we're taking out the existing school and a lot of the parking, we're kind of rationalizing the parking a little bit and then adding the fields.
Mhm. And filling the parking with some green space that was much more limited previously.
Yep.
Is
So
that
some
field
more-
proposed to be a turf field or?
The brown one is,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
okay.
And
The
this
baseball
It won't be.
field, soccer
one
field
is-
would also be turfed or grassed?
I believe this one is grass and this one is turf.
Yeah.
Dave, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, that's right. So
Any other
that takes us
questions?
to 8:30.
Yeah, any other commission questions regarding this?
No.
Okay, I will ask the public if there are any questions regarding what we just saw. Asking that we keep the questions to, what we just briefly saw. I do see Christine has her hand up. Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the water quality structures and wondered if Paige could speak to the maintenance of those structures, like going into the future, when the school is operational, who maintains those, and also the testing of the water collected in those water quality structures. Who's responsible for that? How often is it tested? And is it sort of continuous automated testing, or and what are the standards that you're using, to test that water before it's discharged? And
Yeah.
so just
there's
generally
no-
how they operate. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there's no testing of the water. It's not like a wastewater treatment plant where you go in monthly and take samples and send them to a lab. The stormwater, the guideline to meet the criteria for discharge to a wetland is to have 80% total suspended solid removal, and then also provide protection from oils and greases. So that it's kind of but there's no like testing once it's in place. It's actually no testing once it's in place. It's the standard that needs to be met as part of the design. Back to the operations and maintenance of it. So there's an O&M plan. We'll get the exact number. I think they need to be inspected twice a year at least, and then cleaned once a year. But we'll get you we can get you the details of those. I think other people would be interested in that as well. And they need to be cleaned by a Vector truck. So it's something that school will need to contract out. And then usually I think someone from the commission can speak there's record keeping requirements that's part of the requirements, for the operations and maintenance of the system once it's completed, that the school have to maintain. And I don't know where it goes from there. Some towns do it differently. Others require reports to be filed or just to be available or compiled in a certain way.
So you designed to meet the standards for oil and grease and total suspended solids, but there's no testing to ensure that that's actually being accomplished?
No, that's not how it's. No, that's not how it's done.
Right,
But also,
so the structures are designed for specific tasks. I guess it might be the right way to say it. So like your deep sumps would separate your oil or grease if it were in there. Your swirl chambers would take any floatables and separate those out. So different structures have different purposes, and combined give you the water quality that's being looked for.
May I
So
answer that?
it- the mass stormwater regs are meant to make you require a treatment train, right? Like that the stormwater would need to kind of go through multiple kind of treatment trains pieces of the treatment train to meet the standards.
And additionally, per the mass standards, a certain water quality volume is required to be met. So all of these structures are, the amount of water that will be going to each structure that needs to be treated is sized. So each structure is appropriately sized to handle that required volume. And then these structures have, published documentation that tells you, as long as you're sending the appropriate water quality volume, they can
Yeah.
treat that amount of water.
And actually, that is a good point. So yeah, they're generally been tested mostly through the UNH stormwater program, where they actually verify TSS removals.
Based on the water quality volume.
Yep.
That answer your question, Christine?
To some degree, I guess the question of quantity of water and quality of water is of concern. And, you have parking areas and roads where there's a lot of, vehicle traffic. And so it's not just the quantity of water that's moving into these wetlands, it's also the quality of the water. And so, that's my concern, so.
Right, so they have to meet certain requirements. Each of these structures has a rating associated with it. So by combining these structures, you're able to meet or exceed the water quality standards. I guess might be the easiest way to say it.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome. Bob Brooks, you have your hands raised. Hand raised.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Dave, can you bring up the map that shows the area where the school is? I forget which map we saw earlier.
The new school, right?
Correct. No, the old school is fine, but school's good.
Are you looking for the drainage area map or the more detailed drainage map?
Probably both, but I like to see the full map.
Yeah, well, maybe bring up the full map, the whole site one page.
Yeah, I think that should work as far as drainage. Now, where the school is presently located, there is presently proposed to have a 650-foot wall on the back. And with a 71-degree pitch, that's about 35 feet high. And we know that's going to be collecting water. And there's a ditch below that's proposed to be 12 feet wide, which is going to, collect falling rock. But it mentions in the report that will also collect the water from the slope coming down, and during the winter where ice would come down and eventually melt. Where would that water go to? Because it's going to be draining downward. Is that going to
Zoom in maybe?
a catch basin, or is it going into the wetlands, or what is the proposed plan where all this excess water is going?
Are you talking about where the current school is, that general area?
No, he's talking the proposed. So behind the proposed school, we're cutting into the ledge.
Into the ledge, yeah, where the angle, right in the middle there.
And Paige, you can she's running her cursor along the rock trough.
Correct.
And so that is meant to kind of give a buffer between where vehicles will be and the back of the ledge face. So that's at the toe of the ledge slope. So I'm just explaining it just so everyone's on the same page. So that's a cut And at the bottom of it is a rock trough that will also pick up the water from any of it, from that rock face. And then I'll hand it off to Paige, but it heads Paige, right?
Yep. So this rock trough, as Dave mentioned, is sloped. So any drainage that sheets off this face or off this back parking area would end up in this essentially a rock swale, which is captured in a catch
Structure
basin.
right there.
Yeah, at the end of the swale. And then this catch basin, continues it on to the closed drainage network, and it makes its way downstream.
Is that, so if you follow the cursor where the end is, where the catch basin is that lower than the other end of the 650 feet?
Yes.
Now, can you run your cursor so I can get a visualization of how long this is on this map? Does this go beyond the parking lot?
No.
Hey, Paige and David, just friendly reminder again,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to keep being this guy, but let's let the chairman kind of run the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, these questions are questions for the applicant that I'm not equipped to answer.
Okay.
So I'm fine if they're directed to the applicant in this case.
Just like that vetting of what's, in the purview of this conversation here today and that sort of a thing on your end.
Yeah,
And
it's-
just, making sure we're not stepping on your toes too.
Right. I mean, it is stormwater management we are talking, and this certainly falls into that category.
So the portion of the swale that we mainly pick up starts basically at the edge of the proposed school building, and then it would flow Page right to that catch basin.
Is that,
She would
I'm
see that.
sorry, is that dark area, is that,
The really dark is and Paige, correct me if I'm wrong, the really dark piece, Mr. Brooks, is the ledge face. So that's like the very steep part of it.
okay,
Yes.
And then the mottled piece at the bottom, below it, page below it, is the rock trough.
okay. Could
How wide is that? Rock trough?
I believe it's approximately 12 feet right now, but
Want to go 15?
We were given guidelines for that from our rock expert. For like and what goes into it, and is a series of things. And we'll have to do this also on the same, just as an aside, on the other, by the driveway up by Farm Road, we'll have to have like a similar feature, which I think I talked to before. But what goes into the sizing of that rock trough is, I think it was a bunch of different things. Oh my God, he had a very detailed report, but it's I think the height and the slope of the rock face itself dictated like the width of that. And even though there's along that rock face, I think the height varies. I think we picked a conservative steady state thickness for the rock trough.
Paige, could you just follow that direction, the flow of water again from that trough, where and how,
sure.
please?
Sorry. Okay. So the slope starts here. This is a curb line here, so that this water would be collected in this catch basin and flow the opposite direction, and then starting right about at this curve, the water would flow elevation 161 down to 160, continues this way. You can see that this needs a little bit more fine tuning, but these are generally intended to be graded like a shallow swale, shallow rock swale. So starting at 160.5, and then onto the next page. Makes its way this way, 159, and then yeah. So we have to clean up these elevations, but this catch basin is lower.
Lower than 160.
Yes,
Yes, it would have to be, obviously. Okay. And then from there, that catch basin is then discharging where?
so then it comes this way, it's picked up in this water quality, and the reason why there is water quality is because this trough also picks up some sheet flow from this back driveway area, which will have be exposed to vehicular traffic. So we're treating it for water quality as well. And then it combines with this other portion of drainage, which is picking up the roof leaders here. And then it comes down and then is discharged to the lower campus portion.
Okay. And could you zoom out there? Okay. Thank you. I just see one more question, Linda. Ireland has a question. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask about the rock face, which is, I guess, 30 to 35 feet high. Is it being designed according to the SCARP Tech report at the 71-degree angle after they said that the 90-degree angle was not safe? And is that included in the impervious surface area, since that is 650 feet long and 30 to 35 feet high? And is there any change with the stormwater calculations in terms of which direction the water was flowing off that slope before?
So I believe this rock, it will confirm this. I believe the rock face is designed at a 71-degree angle. And then I've already blanked on the other two questions.
So at a 71-degree angle, that's now, is that now considered introducing impervious surface? And is that calculated? Your stormwater?
Yeah, so
calculations are based on
we
impervious-
include the area, the rock face area. Again, it's the area looking down on it, the square footage of it. You think of it like the area that link. If this was in like plan, it's long, but it's not wide. But we do include that area into the stormwater calculations. And then I'd have to, the report's 1,000 pages long, so I'd have to look into see what we use for I think we probably would have called that as exposed ledge, right? But I can't guarantee it without looking at the report.
And has any change been made in terms of the way that the water flows into the Series 1 wetland, which is at the south end of that ledge, would be the closest wetland?
The Series 1, there's other wetlands that are closer than the Series 1, but each of the wetlands themselves, we modeled as a design point, so you can look at it. We can look at it individually to see what was going there before and what was going there in the developed condition.
And so based off of, it appears that in the existing condition, based off of the contours, this design point is design point 8 in the existing condition. And there is a roadway, that path that sort of flows that way.
And then the other half of it is the pink to the right of the page.
Oh, this one, Dave?
Am I getting that wrong? Oh yeah, I'm lost. I'm sorry. Some of it's in the brown.
Yeah. Which would be flowing to design point 3.
Which is
Wetland Series 10, I believe.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I think.
So I have one more question, and that is with respect to the impervious area created by, are the steps 8 feet wide? The concrete steps 8 feet by roughly 400 feet? That is the 100 concrete steps that would presumably be salted. Is that water also flowing down to is that taken into the stormwater calculations? And does that flow underneath the new athletic fields?
100. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. The 100.
Are you
So
referring to
that-
these
that
steps?
is- Yeah, are those 8 feet wide and I think approximately 400 feet long, that concrete section? And wouldn't that also have to have salt treatment in order to keep that safe in the winter?
Salt would eat the concrete. You'd have to be very careful what you put on those stairs if they're concrete. Because normal road salt would eat through them.
So, two parts. So if those are proposed to be impervious, that's how we would model them, and we can check to make sure. Because again, we have no. I mean, it's basically mine Page's license. We have no desire for this not to be to shortchange the system in some way so it doesn't work. And then again, not to speak for the Conservation Commission, it's something they would typically, but there would be de-icer used, but what that de-icer would be, at the end of the day, I think I've heard there's a desire maybe not for salt to be used, which is kind of fairly typical now for like most modern projects.
So that means not rock salt be used, but some other form of salt, I
Yeah,
presume?
you wouldn't want to use sodium chloride on concrete because it would eat through the concrete over time. There are other salts that would be less aggressive, and there's also other de-icing agents that could be used.
Right, okay.
Was that it, Linda, for your question?
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. All right, I do not see any other questions or hands raised. Oh, Jennifer has her hand raised. This will be the last question for tonight by the public, by the way.
Which aspect of the stormwater system is the one that's referenced in the value engineering? And then what is the effect on the process if the stormwater management approach is altered in the value engineering process? How would that affect the process? Would the project come back before the Concom for further review, or what would happen then?
So the
Mr.
stormwater
Chairman,
being
if I could.
proposed.
I'm not clear on that first question again. Could you repeat that,
Yeah.
Jennifer?
Right, the value engineering report that was released to the public in August of this year that lists identified potential cuts include a reference to the storm drainage. So I was asking which component of the system is that? And then my second question about the effect on the process, if that is ultimately cut from the project.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
This is basically misinformation. The value management log is being taken out of context in this regard. It's a piece of an MSBA submission. And what that cost savings represented was the design team shifting the location of the infiltration system to minimize exactly what was needed in terms of how big the system needed to be. I think, David, the way you explained it is that it had to work less hard so it could be smaller, and it served the same exact function. So there's no reduction in function. It was just an optimization in how we went about that function. So to look at a value management log, to see a cost reduction, and to jump to the conclusion that we're removing the scope from the project without kind of getting that in confirmation is just inaccurate. So I think we should spell that out.
Yeah, and I'll kind of answer it from the back forward. So what we're proposing is what's being reviewed and what would be built and permitted. So any change to that would need to go back through some level of review for the Conservation Commission. So we can't propose a stormwater system that we don't have an intention of building or changing, and because we just find ourselves back here in this process, and that's not what we want to do. So and then as far as when we were working on the system over the summer, what we found out is to mimic what's we had a design previously, similar to, you guys probably won't even know this, but was similar to what we're showing tonight, but we were overcompensating because we were sending the water in the wrong, we were trying to overcompensate because we were redirecting the water where it goes now to where we were sending it before. I'm not explaining this well, but looking at the system in the spring and over the summer to mimic what's happening out there now, the system just became much more efficient. Before we were fighting ourselves in the system that we were proposing. So we got the same results by having a more efficient system, less land disturbance to do it. The end result's the same. We're not fighting ourselves to do it. That's not a great explanation, but what's being proposed is what's being built.
So, so you're saying that the system that was identified in that report was sort of an unnecessary $600,000 expense that's not really needed, and so is the expectation that that will be in fact cut because it's an unnecessary expense?
It's not cut. It's not being shown. It doesn't exist. It was value engineering. It's not just taking things out. It's looking at how you're doing things and are you doing the most efficient way. Are you going to, how can you get to the same goals by, from my perspective, with my stuff, because I have like standards I have to meet, so this isn't like a shell game. We're not like cutting anything. We're not trying to slip anything by anyone. Again, this is my license. I have to kind of like, and we're going to be here for 100 years. So it needs to work. It needs to be easily maintainable, and it needs to meet the goals. We're not, and again, I'm not explaining it well, but the system we're proposing is in front of you, and we were able to look at it, God, was it now November? So like 6 months ago, and say, we can do this a better way. And that's what that was.
So you're saying that that cut is already, well, not cut, but that adjustment, that savings is already.
David, please let the chair.
Yeah, so just to, I guess, maybe clarify, we're reviewing the project before us, not what might have been proposed at one other point in time. So we cannot comment or add flavor to any prior iterations, only to what is in front of us.
Right, but this report was published in August, so only 3 months ago, and the way it reads is a list of potential cuts. So I think it's reasonable for me to wonder whether that is a potential cut, and then what would the effect on the process be? Because if that were, let's say, something that has not been cut but will be cut, but the work on the project has already begun, then is it really realistic to think that the Conservation Commission, even if they review it again, are going to, kind of stop a project where they've already, started tree cutting and blasting because of the effects on stormwater? I think that's a reasonable question. I actually still don't really know the answer to it.
Any changes while this is in front of us need to be vetted out. So I guess I'm not answering it clearly, but the project presented as it is in front of us is what we're working with. What was presented prior or suggested before isn't something we would comment on. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to chime in and maybe clarify that.
I think that sums it up pretty well.
But we're again, to the chairman, we're talking, I believe, about, is it a potential alteration, or has that already been removed? That $637,000 worth of something, right? That was for something.
Again, it's not something we would comment on because it's not being presented to us. We're working with the plan that's presented to us, and cannot, reasonably comment on something that was hypothetical or proposed before it got to us.
At the end of the day, it was really just us looking at it and making it a more efficient system.
So it's not a potential change, it's a change that's already been made.
David, I wouldn't
we're kind of going around in circles.
Yeah, and this is kind of deep into
David,
like
can you please let the,
MSBA.
David, I'm sorry. Can we please just let the chair? Sorry, David. It's just that it's 9 o'clock and we keep, you know.
Yeah, we're going around in circles. That, whatever you're suggesting wasn't presented to us. So it's not something that we would discuss in any way. We're looking at the project presented to us and making adjustments as we go. But anything prior to that is not something we can comment on. Yeah, maybe that's a question for the chat or the whatever, the Q&A section or something of that nature.
Oh, good point.
But it's not a question that we would be able
Exactly.
to answer or should entertain. I did say no more questions, but I do see one more, so I will let this question go. But that is absolutely going to be it for tonight. So Karen, I see your hand is raised. Please identify yourself and give us your address.
Karen Johnson on Beltran Street, Malden. I just wanted to make a comment. Actually, Joe DeSantis characterized Jennifer's question as misinformation. We look at documents. This is not our daily life, and we struggle to understand what they mean. And asking questions or wanting things qualified we're not spreading in misinformation. And I just wanted to say I objected to that. That's all, and I'm done.
All right,
Thanks.
that's right. Again, it's not something we could
Yeah, I understand.
really comment on.
Just to clarify, if I can, Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead, please.
all I wanted to say is that the statement that something was removed is misinformation.
It was a question.
All right, so we're going to move on. I don't see any other hands raised, and that was the last question we were going to take tonight. We will be continuing to December 6th is the next meeting. And we're going to move on to some additional Concom business at this point in time. So I do thank everybody for their participation. And we'll talk again on the 6th. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
All right. We know that Angem Lane was continued, so DEP 313120 to Angem Lane was continued at the applicant's request to December 6th. If there's anybody here for that. And we do have some other business we're going to talk about now. Let's see, we do have a few things here on the agenda. Rebecca's not with us tonight, but Judy, did you want to pick anything in particular order? I know you had some things to talk about.
Talk about the trail stewardship program.
Okay.
So some of the
Oh, your audio is pretty bad.
how's that?
You're very muffled.
Yeah, we could barely understand what you're saying, Judy. All right, can you hear that? No. It's
Sounds
no
like
better.
you're underwater.
Yeah, I think it's my laptop. Let me move another spot. Is it better here?
It's
Yeah.
louder, but still muffled.
All right, how about here? Now it's worse. Okay, I'm gonna switch my phone. I'm gonna have to turn my laptop. Maybe you could have that up like a new one.
All right, Judy's trying to connect back in.
Bob, is there any topic we can talk about without Judy?
Well, there was a discussion of next year's budget. Rebecca's not here. She did forward it around. It came in kind of late. I haven't had a chance to look at it. Don't know if anybody else did. But
I took a quick peek. It seemed fine. There's a slight increase, it looks like.
Yeah, I have not looked at it.
Or $1,400?
Maybe we could each take a look at that between now and the next meeting. Did she say when it was due back? I don't recall. Her email said, I don't think it did.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
I do want a chance to go through it. I don't have any comments at the moment. I mean, it's been pretty level funded the last, whatever, 15, 20 years.
There's a bit of an increase in contractual services, and a small amount in staff.
Yeah.
And given that we're using consultants more, that's probably helpful.
Well, we're not paying for the
We
consultant.
don't
Yeah,
pay for
that's not in the budget, Paul.
Yeah, I see that. Understand. Actually, looking at it, it's no different from the appropriation. Now that I look at it more carefully, there's no difference from the appropriation in 21 and 22. It's the same contraction.
Yeah, it's been pretty level.
Yeah, so pretty much the only difference is personnel services.
Judy, you're back.
Yes, I'm back. How's
Much
this?
better.
Much
Okay, good.
better.
Wonderful.
Okay. So are you on the budget now?
We were, but we can go right back to your trail stewardship.
Okay, the open space and the ESC committee, environmental sustainability, has a land use subcommittee that I'm on. So they've been talking a lot about trails and how to enhance the access and visibility. So I've been working on a trail steward handbook that other towns use. Melrose, Burlington, I think Arlington has one. So and I talked to Rebecca about it too, what we thought would be a good idea is if the commission would approve the concept of a trail stewardship program, which would mean people would volunteer, they'd be assigned a trail, and they'd go out and walk it at least once a month and then report back to the commission if there's any kind of dumping, encroachment, trees that are blocking access, anything like that, because there are reports that come in fairly regularly from Melrose, from their trail stewards, particularly the ones off of Spring Street, about encroachment and different things. And they'll call and, you know, there's really not much we can do about it. So I think this would help. ESC has some people that are interested in becoming stewards. So I think it would be a good way, especially now that the ARPA money has been approved for the tax title, on the tax title parcels. So I think this would kind of jumpstart moving the plan ahead with these parcels. So I wanted to see what we thought about it, and I can send around the draft of the document. I can't access it right now, but I can send that to you. It's a very short document, but just so there are some clear guidelines so people don't, you know, start creating their own trails or things like that.
So
I just wanted-
are the trails identified in some way?
Yes, we're going to have a trail map. I mean, most of the trails we already have, but some of the volunteers said that they would use the GPS mapping because a couple of the maps are already done on GPS. And then that would be, we could work with the engineering department with their GIS person to try to help us with the mapping.
Okay. And in the case of maintaining the trails, what type of extent are we talking about? Like if there's a downed tree across a trail, somebody would go in and cut it and move it?
No. The only time that unless there's a branch overhanging that could fall on someone on a trail, or if it completely impedes passing of a trail, if it's something you can climb over or walk around, then I have in the handbook, it should be left in place. Because it just there's no one to maintain it. The town is not, they don't have the staff unless it's something, I know.
Boy Scouts?
Yeah, I know DPW has sent sometimes people out when there's been a couch. There was a man cave with a wood stove on one of the trails off of Spring Street. So they took that down. There was a deer blind off another trail. So things like that, they would go in, but otherwise they are not going to maintain the trails. And really the only maintenance, there aren't, I asked Rebecca, I never got any complaints about trash dumping along trails, and she hasn't received any either. The one complaint that's been consistent is encroachment. Cars parked and different things like that. So I think the maintenance would be if they saw some trash along the way, they could pick it up, just small trash. If there are like branches that are, projecting into the trail, they could just snip it back. But we're not talking about cutting anything with a saw, just little snippers just to clear away on the path. Because most of the paths, especially in Holland Road area, are well maintained and they're pretty wide. So I think that it wouldn't be a high level of maintenance.
Okay, I do remember we had the Scouts as an Eagle project twice actually do some cleanup on that path in Reedy Meadow.
Yes.
And
They do
actually,
rounds as well.
yeah, they did some signage and clean up
Yep.
trash and.
Yeah, and once there are kiosks, making sure the kiosks are clear and, looking out for any kind of dumping of stuff. Now that mattresses can't be put out with the trash, I'm anticipating that especially along Holland Road, the complaints will start to pick up again, because that would happen before, that people would just throw mattresses along Holland Road because there are so many stretches where there are no houses. So I think that's a rare occasion where it would be something that DPW would have to go in and take it out.
And the people who, I forget what you call them, it's the trail stewards. So they're just people who volunteer to be a trail steward and.
Yes, and they would keep a log and they would submit it to the commission once a month. To say,
then,
things remain the same, or I saw this, whatever happens to be the case.
would we pass anything along to DPW? Would we tell them, hey, there's a mattress, or hey, there's a deer stand?
Absolutely. Yep.
Do they know that?
They will know that. I mean, that's the process now. If there's a complaint that there's something tossed in an area, and that's not generally, it's not going to be, I'm sure, an immediate response, but it's something that they have taken care of in the past.
Is there any type of ADA requirement to any of these trails?
No, I don't think that's possible on most of these trails. And I don't think that's a
access would be difficult, but if there were trails that were accessible, is there an obligation to keep them accessible through the trail? Like again, if a tree did come down and that blocked a path, is there a requirement or a need, that we'd have to get somebody in there to take care of that?
I don't think so. I can find out, but there isn't now in any of these trails. And that would be part of what would be highlighted in the trail stewardship handbook, would be, the benefit of well-maintained trails is it increases accessibility for a broader audience.
Right.
Maybe families want a bike in there, or, anything. People that have mobility issues could still come into a certain portion.
How wide are the trails, Judy?
Some of them are pretty good width. because some of them open up in certain areas along Holland Road. So they're not narrow in any areas. I mean, they may be narrower, but there's certainly more than a few feet.
Well, if you want to send a draft of what you prepared around, that'd be great. Thank you for
Yeah.
all that work,
Okay.
Judy.
So
Yeah,
what do you think of the program? Are you in favor of it or?
I think it sounds
I
great.
am.
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounds great. Judy,
Okay.
I'd definitely be
really does,
interested.
Judy.
Okay,
And then also, Judy, I don't know, we've talked about this before, it's definitely a scout type of thing.
yes,
To help out, and my family is kind of involved with the scouts a little bit, so we could try to facilitate that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they've done
okay.
good work before and they're looking for projects.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
And, you know, this might identify projects. If there's something big, there's something
Yeah.
wrong that someone identifies, then they can go after it.
Yeah, it could be a
Right.
great Eagle Scout project.
yeah, no, I think so. And like the kiosks, things like that, I figured could be something that they may be able to take on, you know, down the road. But now that, you know, the APRA money has been designated for the title searches, that's a huge first start, I think.
Yeah, I mean, signage, I think, is a big opportunity.
Yes. And just more visibility that we have trails.
Right, trail map.
Yep.
Available online, or, you know, whatever would be great.
Right, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Any other comments or questions about that? But it sounds like a great program.
No, that's all I have. Oh, and there will be a some kind of land swap with this power bank that's proposed at in between the high school and the Voc.
Right,
that
there's
the
a meeting
Gas and Light is
tomorrow.
proposing.
Yeah, there's a meeting tomorrow, Zoom meeting about that. Kind of a PowerPoint presentation on it, I guess.
Okay,
But
I didn't know
what
that
I
about that. I
understand
was-
is that both parcels are owned by the land, so how is that a swap?
it isn't a swap. Well, that's right. That's correct. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what because one small lot has been proposed and I don't know where the other larger lot is. So we'll see what happens with that. And that's on for town meeting on Saturday to vote whether to approve that.
Yeah, and so I did see in the item tonight, the presentation is tomorrow, I think at 7,
Okay,
just to kind of give an overview of what that.
Where is that?
Rebecca forwarded us the PowerPoint presentation and some plans.
okay, I didn't see that. She didn't send that to me.
Yeah, we have those.
Okay. Because I questioned why, since the commission has to vote on this, why they weren't included.
They
in
do,
it.
no, but
No, we
again,
don't.
her email says that Tom Mullen thinks the commission does not have to vote on it. The Executive Office of Environmental Affairs.
They don't have to, but apparently they want a vote from the commission. I think they want that support.
Okay.
Which makes sense, but it would have made better sense had they come to the commission
Before.
to say, these are the parcels we're interested in, instead of presenting and say, this is what we have. And maybe maybe the parcels will be fine. That's to be determined.
Bob, where are they doing the presentation?
It was in tonight's item. It's a Zoom call tomorrow, I think at 7, I believe. It's probably on the town website.
Yeah.
I can grab the paper and double check.
All right, that's all right.
So we just started talking about the energy park. Is there anything else to talk about that? Article 97, land disposition, energy park, that we just didn't cover?
Just a question, is Hemlock Road gonna remain in place after the Voc is rebuilt?
Yes.
Of course.
So there's no rerouting of Hemlock Road.
No, but they want to use it for pretty much one-way vote traffic instead of two-way vote traffic.
Yeah. One of the figures that comes along with what Rebecca sent seems to show use of some of the right of way for it. as some of the connections. That's all.
For the energy park?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it was gonna be proposed heading up the road on the right after the football field. I
Mhm.
thought. That makes sense.
yeah, there's 2 lots that they're looking at building it in the south, what they call the south lot on town land.
Yeah, okay. North lot, south lot. There is a parking lot up there, kind of across from Landrigan Field. So that must be plan left of the south lot.
They want to use the south lot to put the energy, I was trying to figure that out. The south lot to put the energy park on?
I'm not sure which one would have, there's gonna be solar arrays, right? And there's gonna be some
Solar
battery
arrays, I
storage
think, go on the schools, isn't that
on the
correct?
roofs, and then battery storage in one of these 2 lots, right?
Right.
But again, the picture on the left, you see, is of that lot, right?
Yeah, they're basically going to have multiple battery systems and inverter systems and a gas-fired generator.
A presentation if you need
Here's the
it.
presentation, right?
Okay. Yeah, this is what they're going over tomorrow.
Battery storage, generator.
15 megawatt. Whoa.
15 megawatt hour storage.
Wow.
It's not clear how big the generator is.
I mean, a typical house would be like a 20 kilowatt generator. So I don't know how big that is. All right, so it's before the gates on either side. So they'll collect the solar on both schools. They'll store it in the batteries. Yeah, I'm curious what it's sized for. What type of outage would it handle? Is it just for emergency lighting, or is it
I don't think so.
to allow the
It
school
says-
to be fully functional?
It says it will serve as emergency power for source
Okay.
for both schools.
All right, so that's your, yeah. Lighting and exits and whatever's critical.
Yeah,
The schools won't be fully functional. They just won't be in a blackout condition.
right.
Probably keep their systems up and running too, whatever they have for servers.
Yeah, Rebecca make some suggestions about the meeting. I think we should move to a replacement canopy policy requirements. Talking about the trees to be
Oh, but it's
replaced.
about the tree policy in general, right? Ken?
Hold on a second, I'll show you the email.
Yep.
Yeah, didn't she saying that they were suggesting that they would replace any trees?
Right,
I
they've
thought that-
replaced by number of trees,
Okay,
not by coverage lost. That's the problem.
right.
Yeah, Rebecca's suggestion was that we should change our tree policy
Yes, no, I agree with that.
Right.
Yep.
So Ken, just when you thought you were done,
Mhm.
May I add another point? This is Haley.
Sure, Haley.
If we're
thinking about that, it should also be noted, we should be thinking about the carbon that each mature tree is holding. And we can put in the wording of like carbon sequestration. And just noting that loss for cutting down old growth tree versus new growth tree.
And you could also add water uptake or water, what a tree holds too, as
stormwater, yes.
Yeah, in that same thought process, but I'm not sure, how do you replace canopy? You know, how would you do that?
I
It
think
would
that's only
be,
a time thing, isn't it? You're not gonna do it immediately.
no, but they would need to plant more trees than just, if they're removing 10 and replacing 10, that's not going to cover the canopy. So what Rebecca was saying is to increase the number of trees that are to be planted.
But even that's not going to replace the canopy unless you replace it with a mature tree, which
Right.
obviously you can't
It
replace a
isn't.
60-foot tree.
But I think it's a better trade-off than just getting 10 saplings. If it's 2 to 1, then that's definitely a better plan.
I don't know about that.
Why? I don't know why. Okay.
I mean,
I don't know why you.
well, the policy now gives you options like shrubs or whole different scenarios. Some of those will not even create canopy. Some of the options they have now in the policy. So maybe that needs to be looked at.
It's hard to do like to like, right?
It is. What's reasonable?
And it's hard to quantify, carbon sequestration and water uptake. It's hard to figure that out with exactly what.
There is a calculator that you can put in the area of the country you're in, the type of tree, and it will tell you how many gallons per day on average.
Cool.
And then the idea is that to match that with replacement trees, Judy?
It could be.
Or at least a consideration, right?
Right.
Yeah, it certainly would require some further discussion and thought.
You have to develop a rather comprehensive manual for people doing calculations about tree removal, I think.
Yeah, it could get very complicated.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't, maybe it's not something that would have to be required, but I think it would be an eye opener to see, a general calculation.
Well, yeah, maybe to that end, maybe we say, hey, you want to take down these 3 mature, whatever, 60-foot oak trees. Did you know that those 3 trees would hold whatever, 200 gallons of water? Just to
Right.
bring the awareness, I guess.
Right.
Maybe
Where do you think that water, where do you think that water is going to go?
Exactly.
Yeah. Good point.
Maybe it's just bringing in the awareness, the education.
Right. That's what, I agree with that. I don't think it hurts to heighten the awareness.
No.
Yeah, we do, I think, a pretty good job of talking about canopy and the shade, these trees provide and the value to the resource areas that the canopy provides, but we probably don't talk enough about water uptake and carbon replacement and all that stuff.
Right.
All right. So I don't know. I mean, do we want to entertain revising the tree policy again, or?
I think we need to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think we need to think about
Yeah, I pulled a bunch of examples last time I looked at it. I'll go through those examples again just to see if any of them touch upon any of those topics. Let me weed through them a little bit.
That'd be great, Ken. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I'll send you the tree, the calculator tool,
Yeah, that'd be great.
So,
and then you'll have a better idea of whether it's something you think would be
yeah, I'm
valuable.
curious, does the tree
Yeah.
calculator, like, do you pick the type of tree that you're,
Yes, the section, you can choose the northeast and then the type of tree and the approximate caliper.
okay.
Wow.
So a cactus, we can have a cactus on one end,
Right.
Yep.
holding like
Yep.
300 gallons of water.
Anything else, Bob?
So we briefly talked about the budget. Should look at that. I guess be prepared with any comments we may have or send them back.
So what can
Email.
we do? Can we suggest change? I mean,
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
we
We
can
can.
suggest increases and they'll say,
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
they'll
You
say
haven't-
yay or
you haven't
nay.
had any- You haven't had any increases in probably more than 15
So,
years.
Rebecca in her email, I'm gonna say it in front of Judy, don't be embarrassed, that Judy has not had an increase in her rate in years and years and years. So I
And
think,
I ask every year for the last 10 years I've asked, and I've been told no.
by
By
whom?
who?
Just a side note,
By
by the commission.
whom?
By the
By
commission.
us?
Yes,
I have no memory of that.
No.
well, it's on tape the last couple of years.
It's impossible.
That's very true.
I
It's
would
true.
never.
It's true,
Must have been Jimmy.
probably.
That
Jimmy
can't
got the
be right.
reject stamp out.
Yeah.
Blame Frank.
I think we definitely have to
Frank.
I
request.
think
an
we should, I
increase.
think we need to get Judy a raise.
Yes,
Ah,
okay.
absolutely. I'm embarrassed to say that
And-
we put a kibosh on it in prior years. That's
We
ridiculous.
didn't put a kibosh on. it. She
I'm
just wasn't
gonna pull
vocal
up,
enough.
nope, I'm gonna pull up the minutes. That's absolutely wrong. I think the last time I got a raise was when Tom Butler was here.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a long time ago.
and that was before the Bruins won the Stanley Cup, so that was a long time ago.
Right,
Judy-
in 2008.
Judy,
Before Cup
do
BC.
you have if we live in the best of all possible worlds, a suggestion for the increase?
I'm gonna have to ask the town accountant because I don't know if they have a certain scale that they use. So I'll find out.
Please tell us,
Yes, I will.
because I can't stand.
That's true. So did you want to raise it in on any other of your items?
I think, I haven't even looked at it, to be perfectly honest. It
Oh,
came
okay.
kind of late.
I mean, you don't have to vote on it tonight anyways.
Right.
Wh-
So we'll look at it.
When do we need to have answers back?
Ideally,
We're only
He
halfway through the
prefers-
year.
yeah, well, he
It's not
likes to
even-
do the smaller budgets, get them out of the way in December.
Oh,
So we
okay.
have a little bit of time.
Yeah,
So we should commit to doing it by the next meeting.
sure.
I can't believe the next meeting is December 6th, but that's okay.
I know.
Yeah.
And the first open space committee meeting is tomorrow night at
Yeah.
6:30.
6:30.
Oh.
Um,
That's conflicting meetings.
Yeah, I didn't know about the other meeting. They didn't schedule it
Right.
until,
Your meeting was first, dude. I get it.
yeah.
yeah,
I
maybe
mean, it
I'm
shouldn't be
wrong. Maybe it
scheduled last
wasn't
minute.
tomorrow. I could have sworn it was, but maybe it isn't.
No, it probably is.
I'll get the paper in the other room. I could double check, but, okay.
I mean, this open space is just an introductory meeting, just to lay out the guidelines and where we're gonna go
Those
from here.
the links to the surveys that you've been sending.
Yep.
Those surveys are
that's-
very
yeah,
well
that's
thought
master
out and
plan.
very in-depth.
Very long.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
long,
thought
yeah.
so too. And not many respondents, that's the problem.
Well, you know what happened, Judy? I got halfway through and then I had to stop because I was at the office. Well, can you go back and remember where you are? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
I'll go back.
You usually can, I don't know.
I can start again and make
Yeah,
sure.
the turnout hasn't been great for the master plan. The last.
Again, it's very off-putting because it's such a long,
I thought it was too long.
yeah, way too long.
Yeah, because that's the thing, people get halfway through it and say, I have to get it.
Telling you, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
After Bob shamed me into doing it, saying that he thought it was good.
I went through the whole thing.
Well, you're very good.
But
open
I'll tell
space
you,
survey will be shorter.
there were points where I'm like, there should be an NA.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of
yeah,
those points.
exactly, yeah.
I
Exactly.
drive my car to work
Right,
and
right.
it wouldn't make sense for me to carpool with somebody and, you know,
Right.
there was a bunch of things
Right.
that just wouldn't make sense.
Right.
Or a place for you to put it into words to you know,
Yeah.
do something.
It's
right.
forcing you to into certain answers. That's what I didn't
Yes,
like about it.
that's
Yes.
exactly right.
Yeah,
So I just like skipped ones like that just didn't make sense.
Right, right. Yeah, the transportation discussion was a little bit interesting at the in-person forum, the last one they had about a month ago. Yeah, they're talking about shuttles and things like that. I mean, a shuttle to Oak Grove would be great for a lot of people,
Yes.
but I don't think in-town shuttles are going to take
Right,
off.
I agree.
Or even
Or bike, I don't
bike
think the bike lanes
rentals.
are gonna take them.
Yeah.
No,
Most
yeah, I
people
don't see
have
that
a
happening.
bike. If they want to ride, they have a bike. So
Right,
going someplace to pick up a rental bike, it didn't make sense. It's not like we're locked in the city without a vehicle.
exactly.
We all have vehicles.
Yeah, right. And like I said, if it were something that a lot of people, a shuttle to Oak Grove, that would be great for people.
Yeah, I agree. That would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because it's not always the easiest place to park,
no,
especially at Bruins
Mm.
game or, you know, you're leaving early and the commuters haven't left yet.
and if you don't get there before 7 o'clock, you can't get a space.
Yeah.
Plus, it's expensive. The parking is, I think, I don't know, $12 now
Well,
a day.
the bus goes down Main Street.
Have you
So-
taken the bus
Yeah,
ever?
It's
Yeah, of course.
painful to
Yeah.
get to Oak Grove on the bus. You
I
want to kill
would not
yourself
take
by the
the-
time you get there.
yeah, but how's the
Exactly.
shuttle gonna be much faster, I guess, is what I'm
There's
thinking.
no stops.
Exactly,
The shuttle.
right. And they could charge a small fee. I'm sure people would pay that. So that was my suggestion.
I think that's a good one.
It is a good one.
It'll go nowhere. We have a lot of good open space ideas, so that's what I'm concerned about.
I checked the utility website and it is tomorrow night at 7, their presentation.
Yeah,
you'll have to
I
talk
don't-
quick, Judy.
Yeah, I know. But I just don't, I mean, I asked town council directly why conservation wasn't included in an upfront conversation. Yeah, they're gonna present 2 areas and say, this is what we have. There may have been other areas, if they're just gonna use town land anyways, then there should have been a conversation, I think, held ahead of time.
Maybe they thought because there's no resource areas, they wouldn't involve us. I don't know.
That
It
is what they
doesn't matter
thought.
though.
That's what Tom Mullen said. No, right.
Right, but I think that's a little disingenuous of another town department to kind of snub the Conservation Commission. It is Chapter 97 land, whether, I mean, they're changing the law, thankfully, but I think out of courtesy alone, conservation could have been brought into the conversation. It just leads one to believe that there's something going on behind the scenes that they don't want you to know about, and that's the problem. The more veiled you keep these things, the more conspiracies can start.
Or was it just an honest oversight?
No, there's no
No.
way. They've been looking for, no, I don't think so at all. No. They have certain sites they want, which is fine. If they have certain sites they want, that's fine, then say that. I don't see anything wrong with just being upfront about it and saying, these are the 2 sites we propose. Okay. There's no need to, dance around things. When you don't have, really the power to.
I think conservation should have been invited because
Absolutely.
we're all about open space and
Right,
passive
yeah, yeah,
recreation. That's our
absolutely.
mandate. That's been our mandate from day one, so that
Right.
this is the land that we're supposed to be taking care of.
Right.
And that should be why Tom said that, what do you say, Judy, that we had to, that they weren't gonna include us?
They were not going to, yeah.
Well, I think that's wrong. I think that's a good reason why we should be included. And I think if they don't include us, I think that's really going against what the Conservation Commission Act. I don't know.
It's not a good way to do town to town business. That's what it comes down to.
But if it's Article 97 land, if it is, it needs to go to the legislature, the Mass legislature. So.
Right, and that's why it's going to town meeting. And I think
So-
part of it is,
So if
The
we feel
con-
very strongly about it, we could write, I mean, and object to it if we feel strongly.
yes,
about it. Right.
yes. And I think the fact that it's called an easement is fairly misleading.
But also it needs 2/3 vote in the state legislature, which is not easy to get. So it's not again, if it's an article, so it's not a done deal in any way, shape or form.
I wouldn't be
Good to know.
surprised if they already have,
The votes
The wheels
lined
green.
up, Judy? Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I wouldn't be surprised. And I think what would have been advantageous to them would be if they had an upfront support from the commission to strengthen the public perception of this whole process. That would have helped them going into town meeting, saying conservation is on board, we have a plan laid out. They're doing it backwards is what I think. They knew that they were going to do this, it's not a last minute planning type of thing. So I don't know what the reasoning is.
And your thought why the easement is misleading is because there's like permanent structures going on top?
Well, they're clearing the
Come up
whole
with a
area.
passage.
An easement to me is like getting,
A passage,
being able to traverse the area, right?
right,
Not clear cutting 100 trees.
yeah.
That's a different scope to me.
Wow.
It's the entire parcel. It's not just a portion of it.
All right, anything else? Judy, you have anything else?
No, so I'll send that handbook along. And if you have any changes you want, any additions, anything like that, just send them to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you.
you, right, Judy.
Thank you.
Anything else from the commission? Jim, you're going out tomorrow to look at the,
I am. I'm gonna go get my boots on. I'll be out there. I'll take pictures. Hopefully there's some water flowing somewhere. I think they got it all wrong in that area.
What time you going out, Jim?
Why, Peter? You might go?
Maybe.
You have to be, you gotta go for breakfast?
No.
Be too cold. probably.
right.
Alan, you want me to call you?
Yeah.
You won't go.
I might surprise you.
All right.
Jimmy, you going early or going in the afternoon?
I usually would go early, but I think it's gonna be cold tomorrow.
yeah, but you're also gonna want to see the rain,
Oh, you want-
build up.
It's supposed to rain tonight. It's supposed to.
Yeah, it's
start
supposed to
tonight.
start after 10 tonight, yeah.
So, we'll see which way the water's flowing out there.
Yeah, it's gonna rain, let's see. Till about noon.
Yeah, so that'd be a good.
Yeah, you
it's
wanna
supposed
go
to be
as
a-
late as
it's supposed to be a
possible.
good, how much rain are we supposed, inch-wise, how much are they expecting? Half an inch, an inch?
They don't say that on the weather, do they? On the-
No. It's not saying, just 100% chance.
Yeah.
Could be a snowy mix initially.
Yeah.
Not around us, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Snow this
not-
evening will mix with and change to rain later.
Wow, too soon.
I'm not getting my snowblower out for this one.
What's that?
I'm not gonna
Okay.
get my snowblower out.
Okay. I'm sure it's working fine though.
All right, are we done? Although I do love being with you guys, you know that.
I guess, hey, one other question. Did Savannah officially resign?
Yes, she should have resigned a while ago now.
Oh, officially put in her resignation, I see.
So
No,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
told her to send a letter to Sherry.
She did?
Yeah,
So then we should send a letter to have Haley appointed.
I already,
No.
Haley already,
Applied.
Haley can speak for herself. Haley,
Yes, Jimmy.
did you send out whatever you had to Sherry? Did you tell her that
Yes,
you wanted?
it- at the
Letter of
time,
interest and resume?
I sent her the application. She said she has not listed the position yet and has to post it first.
So I'm just gonna say Haley said this exact same thing last meeting, so people need to pay attention.
Oh, stop it.
Town council voted last night
That's
to,
that New Yorker in you.
I'm sorry,
coming
what
out.
did you say, Judy?
town council voted last night to post the opening.
Oh,
for
good.
the- Yeah, so that'll be in probably tomorrow or something.
So we'll have to wait.
Yeah, we will.
Well, that'll
Yep.
be the tomorrow.
Don't worry, Haley, there's not too many people knocking down our doors. You could be one of an elite crowd.
Your competition is slim and none.
Yeah. And Rebecca wasn't at the meeting tonight because her daughter was in the state.
She sent us an email, Judy, yeah.
Yeah.
And they just won in a shootout.
Oh,
Wow.
get out.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow,
so they go on to
So-
the finals.
Okay, I was gonna say that must have been semis.
Yep,
Yep.
that's good.
that's pretty good. Knocked off
Yeah.
Watertown.
That's
Yeah,
excellent.
exciting.
Oh, it's
Okay.
Watertown.
Watertown was undefeated for like,
Yeah, for
7
like the
years
last
or
5
something.
years.
so they must have graduated the whole class.
Wow, that's big. That's a big
Yeah.
upset.
Her daughter hurt her finger though, so hopefully it's not
Uh-oh.
broken.
She's tough.
Yeah,
She's tough like Rebecca a bit.
That's
verbally, yeah.
High school. Wow.
Oh, God.
All right,
All
happy
right.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah,
All
you
Same to
too.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
would somebody like to
Excellent.
make a motion to adjourn?
They have turkey in New York?
Yes. We have the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Come on now. Yes, I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Okay.
second?
Second.
All in favor? Jimmy,
Yeah.
Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote to adjourn. Good night, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Judy,
Thank
thank you for
you.
everything you do.
Yes, Judy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, good night, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
Same to you.
Bye.